Hey, this is Todd. I'm here from Snap Fresh Farm again. I'm not in my basement this time because it's now summer and I've got the garden growing out here. And today I wanted to go over, not basement gardening and not hydroponics, but I wanted to show you what I'm doing outside because I think it might be neat for you to see that as well. What I've got going here is a bucket garden. It's mainly due to one of the biggest problems I have here is I've got trees that are black walnut trees, and they've got a toxic substance that comes out of their roots, and it grows through the ground and the roots, and it kills everything that grows. So I can't garden in my backyard like a normal garden by digging down. So what I did was I went to using buckets and bucket gardening, and I use buckets much like what you can buy in Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. But the bucket, it's actually two buckets, two separate buckets that fit into each other. And you'll notice at the bottom, there's a little water in here. You'll notice at the bottom there's a little cup that goes in the bottom here. And then I have a water tube that goes in the side. So I use these to plant in, and it works out very well. I can put my fertilizer, I can put nutrient in here if I want to. And it really helps the tomatoes. I've got a lot of tomatoes. I've got peppers, beans growing right now, and I'm going to be planting 4 more of these buckets today. So that's what I wanted to go over with you today. To create one of these buckets for bucket gardening, you're going to need one bucket, just one bucket like this, and it's got holes drilled on the side at the level that the other bucket is going to go into and go to. You can see that hole there, and there's another one. There's 4 of them in the bucket. There are 4 of them around the bucket. So that bucket is whole. There's nothing other than those 2 holes or 3 holes drilled in the sides. That's just a regular bucket, 5-gallon bucket. Then you have a second bucket. The second bucket, you have to put a hole in it. And the reason you're putting a hole in there is because you have a cup like this that goes into the bottom, and it fits in the bottom, and then that sits in the other bucket, and that's where your water wicks up through your dirt and goes into your dirt in the bucket. So you have to drill one hole, which I'll get to, and then you have to have the big hole, which is the same size. It just fits this cup fitting in the bottom. So you basically drill a couple holes, you measure it by putting it at the bottom of the bucket, draw around it with an El Marco, cut the hole so that it just fits in there, just big enough so it fits in but doesn't fall through. And then you have that as your wick for your dirt. That's got 4 holes in the bottom of that as well, very small ones. I put those in with an awl. You just have to be careful you don't crack it. But you can just take an awl and punch those holes in there. Then you also have this little hole here, the smaller hole, which is the size of a tube, a PVC tube. And that PVC tube is what actually you use to water your plants. The PVC tube goes in the bucket, in the hole, and then it comes out the other side and it goes down into the other bucket, the second bucket. All right, and then it's got a cut, an angle cut, so that the water can freely go down to the bottom and then out of that. And then the top is just a straight cut. So that's if you've got a chop saw, that's a great thing to do. Just be careful, wear your goggles when you're cutting, and wear goggles, face mask, and any other protective gear that you wear. And so that second bucket has that hole in the bottom. To make the complete bucket system, you take the cup, you put that in the bottom so it's sticking out at the bottom. It's got the holes in the bottom of that little cup. That sticks out the bottom of the bucket. You have your PVC pipe with the angled end. That goes into the bottom through the hole that's the size of the PVC, and then that goes in to your other bucket, and it fits right in there like that. Cups at the bottom, bucket now looks like this. You'll notice that when I told you about the holes in the first bucket, the hole is right at the base where the other bucket goes right down to the bottom of here. Then this is basically where your water well is. So when you put water in this white tube after there's dirt in here, that water will go down into the well of the second bucket, and it'll sit in here, and you don't have to water very often. You only have to water every 2 or 3 days, and that's great with tomatoes especially because they like lots of water. So this is how you create a bucket system for your bucket garden. I didn't create this, I can't take credit for it, so this is online. You'll also see some other guys that have built these. I totally ripped this off, so it's not my idea. I'm not taking the idea, I'm just showing you what you can do for a bucket garden. In my garden, you'll notice that there's buckets, and they have this one's a tomato plant. It's growing really well. It's about 3 feet tall. It's been going in there for about 3 weeks. It's been outside. I grew them from seed. Grow all my stuff from seed inside, and then I replant them in the buckets. And you'll notice they're all in the buckets. They all have the tube. If you look down the tube, I don't think you can see it, but there is some water down in some of these. The tubes water the plants, and great thing about the buckets, you don't have to do any weeding. You never really have to do any weeding. You have minimal weeds growing in there because everything, like this one's got a little bit, but you really don't have to do a lot of maintenance. And you can put fertilizer into that feeder tube, and that will go down in the water, and that will fertilize your plants. It's a lot like what I'm doing indoors with nutrients with hydroponics. You can feed your plants from the base, and works out really well that way. Here's some pepper plants, and then we've got bean plants over here as well, and the bean plants are just starting. They got flowers on them, and they're growing pretty well. So there's the garden. Also, to make life really easy so you don't have to do any weeding in the garden, you do have to weed whack around it, but I put a tarp down, and you'll notice that this has a tarp. It's a pretty big tarp. I'm not sure of the size of it, but it's like it's probably like 15 by 15 feet or something like that. But that tarp, all the plants are on top of the tarp. Makes it really easy to just take a hose and hose it down when it gets dirty. And you've got a garden that takes care of itself for the most part. If it rains, you don't have to do too much watering. I also have, you'll notice this PVC right here. This is just a trellis. This has nothing to do with watering or anything, but it's a trellis that I built out of PVC. It's very cheap. My beans will eventually grow up on the trellis, and that's what the strings are and the posts. I used to also grow a lot of peas and also cucumbers. With this trellis, I can support those, and they grow right up. And I can add a crisscross of string. These strings that I tied. What I do is I just tie strings, and then I can also crisscross on the side bars and tighten those up. Got knots so that I can tighten those real easy. But that's the bucket garden, and that's how I do my gardening outdoors. Mainly because of this tree right here, which is a black walnut tree. Kills everything it can, and it's got quite a toxic kind of substance that's in its roots, and then also comes out of the tree. It drops black walnuts all over the place. I have to pick them up all the time. Supposedly you can eat them. I wouldn't suggest doing that, but if you know how to take the black walnuts off the tree and use them, that's up to you. But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of go over that with you today. Show you real quick what the buckets look like. Here's a couple more that I made. They take about 10 minutes to make each. If you're making a bunch of them, I've got about 30 of them. If you're making that many, you can really produce them. You get a long PVC pipe. You can buy these little cups. These cups that you see here. You could buy about 20 of those for, I don't know, maybe $5 or something. They sell them in Lowe's and Home Depot. They're called deli cups. But you can also use anything like that. For instance, a cottage cheese container works out. Yogurt containers work out fine, so you can use those as well. And then the dirt, I put in my dirt, which is a mix. I have a mixing barrel here that I put, it's garden soil with a mix of some of the chicken manure that my friends in the farm pretty close to here have, and they've given me a bag of chicken manure that I mix in with that and let that sit and compost. It works out really well. Don't mix your chicken manure with your tomatoes. It'll be too much for them, and it would be that mixture is too hot. So you got to let it sit with your other soil. Let it sit in compost for quite a while. So that's the YouTube for today and this week, and I just wanted to bring you out to my garden outside. I'll bring you back into the basement gardening again and do another YouTube what I've got going there. I've got all my lettuce growing in there. All the things that we would actually eat in a salad are in my basement. I don't like growing lettuce out here because it gets eaten by everything. Between the bugs, rabbits, and everything else, even in the buckets, it doesn't do well. So having it in the basement is a wonderful thing. If you want to watch those videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Snap Fresh Farms, and feel free to watch those YouTubes. So thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.